Okay, let's go ahead and get started with today's webinar. So hey everyone, my name is Michael with Implementation Specialist. So for today's webinar, we're going to go through how to process your journal entries. So we'll walk through navigating and populating your journal lines, but we'll also go through a few tips and tricks to make the process a little bit more efficient and just to make your life a little bit easier as you are processing and posting your journal entries. So all of your general journal entries are going to be done within your general journal. And so I typically like to just search for the page or task that I am trying to navigate to. When you're searching, so for example, we're navigating over to our general journal, but you can bookmark that journal to your home page to make navigation to that page a little bit quicker and easier. So for example, I've bookmarked my general journal. So back into my home page, you'll see that a quick link is now available to get to that journal. So I can get to that through this link here. And you can see now that's taken us into our general journal. Within your general journal and pretty much any other journal within Business Central, you're going to have batches that you can create and work from. Your batches, the way that I like to describe it, is essentially just different workspaces that you can create for yourself. In particular with your general journal batch. So if I open my menu of batches, you'll always have your default batch, which is just your main defaulting batch available within VC. But you can see here in our demo environment, we have quite a few different batches created, or essentially just different workspaces. So we have one created for monthly journal entries, daily journal entries, and then you can even set up and create batches for specific users. So for myself, you can see I've created one called Michael's Batch, and I can go in and have that own batch or specific workspace to populate my journal lines into. The good thing about these batches is, let's say I come in today, populate a few lines, and I leave it alone, and then I decide to come back in tomorrow. All of the lines that I've populated will be auto-saved and ready, and I'll be ready to pick up where I left off at. So that's a useful tool as far as your batches goes. In our example today, we'll just stick within our default journal batch. As far as filling out your general journal lines, it's fairly simple. So your posting date will always auto-populate to today's date or the current working date that you are in. You can always manually update that to whatever you would like. I always leave the document type blank for my general journal entries. If you drill into that field, you have a few different options to choose from, but it's an optional field, so I tend to just leave it empty. And then you can go ahead and input in a document number here. So I'll go ahead and just fill in a test number here. You have an external document number field that is available for you to input in as if needed. Again, this field is not required, so it's completely optional for us. Your account type typically would have that set to GL account. If we drop that menu down as well, you'll see a few other options that you can select from. We'll leave it set to GL account, and then we'll go ahead and select a GL account here. I always like, for my examples, I always like to just select maybe a rent account here. So we'll hit rent, so account 60110. Once you have your account number selected, your account name and the description will autofill in with that GL account name. You can always update the description if you want to. So since we're posting to a rent account, maybe I can update my description to rent February 2025. Okay. In our specific scenario, we only, or our demo environment, we're only working in local currency. So we would leave our currency code field blank. If you do transact in multi-currencies, you would have your different currencies set up and available to select from. In our case, we will leave that empty, and then we can go ahead and fill in a debit or credit amount. I'll just do 1,500 here, for example. At this point, and this part is really up to personal preference. You can select your balancing account on the same line, whether it be a GL account or a bank account. So for example, bank account, I can select my balancing entry to my checking account. Or you could leave this field blank and do your balancing entry on a second line. And so what that would look like is I would go into my second line, hit bank account, hit my checking account, and then I would specify my balancing entry here. And so you can essentially do a double line entry or just a single line entry and use your balancing account. But at this point, it's really up to personal preference. So I'll delete the second line. And for this example, I will just utilize my balancing account fields here. Okay. You do have an optional comment. So if you wanted to add any additional comment or anything like that here, you could definitely fill that in as well. And then for our demo company that we're in, we do have 2 dimensions here for your area and department. So if necessary, you can populate those dimension values as well. Okay. So where it could be pretty time consuming, right, is if you have daily, weekly, monthly recurring journal entries that you are having to post, it could be pretty time consuming, right, to come in and manually post or populate these journal lines every time. And so one very useful tool is to create and save what we call standard journals. And so let me go ahead and set one up here as an example. So I'll fill in maybe a few more additional lines here. And I'll quickly go through that. So I'll do my electricity account. And we'll fill in a few more here. So heating, I'll fill in my water and sewage, and then I'll also do one more here for cleaning and waste. Okay, so rather than going through having to populate each of these lines manually, and let me fill in some amounts here to use as an example. Okay, and I'll go ahead and specify my balancing entries here as well. So these will all go into my checking account. And so you can see as I'm going through this, you can see where it might be very time consuming, especially when you are posting these recurring entries and it's a vast amount of lines that you're having to populate, right? So that's where standard journals come into play. So let's just say all of these accounts here, we post on a monthly recurring basis, right? So instead of coming here month by month, manually populating these lines every time, once you've done this for the first time, you can save the list of journal lines here as a standard journal. So we have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 journal lines here. And let's say we want to save this as a group. What we need to do is go into the ribbon, select Actions, Functions, and Save as Standard Journal. And we can go ahead and give it a code as well. So maybe recurring rent. and I'll give it a description here as well. So I'll call that recurring rent as well. And then you could choose to have this as a fixed amount. So you can choose to save the amount if you would like to, or you could leave this field toggled off and it'll leave the amount fields blank for you to then fill in yourself. So in this example, let's go ahead and just save the fixed amount and we'll hit OK. So let's say we'll go ahead and post this so that we are left with an empty journal, but let's just say the following month you are now having to come in and repopulate those recurring lines, right? Rather than manually going through and populating your journal, all you need to do now is select this function in your top ribbon. So under Home and Get Standard Journals, you will see the standard journal that we actually just set up here called Recurring Rent. I'll go ahead and hit OK. And it'll automatically pull in those lines for you so that you don't have to do it manually. And you can see it saved those fixed amounts for us. And we can always set this up to be variable if needed. So at that point, all you do is pull in your standard journal and you can go ahead and post those entries there. So just a quick tip and trick there. Setting up your standard journals can make your journal entry processing a bit more efficient and can save you a bit of time as well. So kind of sticking on the topic of recurring journal entries, another journal that is very useful it's similar to your general journal. This one is called your recurring general journal. And it's just like the name states, this general journal is really used for your different recurring lines, right? So whether it's on a daily, weekly, monthly basis, we can set these general journal entries to automatically recur and repopulate in a specific time frame, right? So within your recurring general journal, you have your batches as well that you can create. I'll just stick in my default batch, but let me show you an example that is similar to what we just walked through in the general journal. But in your recurring journal, you'll have your recurring method. Really, your main ones are your fixed and variable. This is just a recurring journal line with a fixed amount, and then you could also set a recurring line up with variable amounts for you to then go in and populate yourself. But where recurring general journals are very useful is your reversing options. Your main ones are your reversing fixed and reversing variable. And so when you do select a recurring method of reversing fixed, essentially what that does, and a good scenario might be like your accruals, for example. So when you're going through and posting your monthly accruals at the end of the month, you can actually configure and set up Business Central to automatically post those reversal entries, for example, on the first of the next month. And so we can walk through what that example would look like. We'll select a recurring method of reversing fixed, and then your recurring frequency, you can actually mess around and kind of come up with a formula that might work for you. A couple different formulas that I like is, for example, 1 month plus current month. And that formula will basically have this journal line recur on any arbitrary day of a month. Another formula that is very useful here is 1 day plus 1 month minus 1 day. And so essentially what this recurring frequency formula will do for us is it will automatically have this journal line recur on the last day of every month. So we'll leave it set to this formula here. And then I'll set just for this example, I'll set my posting date to today's date. Document type, just like your general journal, you can leave blank. Give this journal line a document number. And then we'll leave our account type set to jail account, and just sticking along the same lines of the last example that we went through, I will post to my rent account. Okay, and you can see the description will autofill with the account name. And then I'll go ahead and just fill in an amount. I'll do 1,500 again. So where your recurring general journal line looks a little bit different as well compared to your normal general journal is instead of having a field for your balancing account entry, you have this allocated amount field. So if I drill into this field, it'll pull up a window where I want to allocate my balancing entries to, right? So you can select one account, you can select multiple accounts that you want to allocate those amounts to. So let's post to our accrued rental account, for example. So let me see if I can find it. So my accrued rental account. So I'll go ahead and select that. And you can allocate your balancing entry amongst as many accounts as you would like, but just to keep this example fairly simple, I'll balance to just one account, which is my accrued rental income. And then if I set an allocation quantity of 1, it'll fill in the rest of my fields. So because we are only allocating to one account, allocation percentage will autofill with 100%, and you can see the full balancing entry of 1,500 will fill in there for us. Okay, so at that point, we can go ahead and close that out, and you can see your balancing entry or allocated amount is now filled in with that credit of 1,500. You also have your expiration date field, so you can choose when this recurring line should stop recurring for us. So I'll set my expiration date to the end of this year. So after the 31st of December, this line will no longer recur automatically. So this field, because we are posting an automatic reversing entry as well, you can set when that reversing entry should be posted, right? So maybe I'll do, I don't know, let's have the automatic reversal entry post after 1 day. So I'll set a formula for 1 day, and then you could post, if you have required dimensions, you could go ahead and fill that in here as well. Okay, and so at that point, you're ready to post. I'm going to preview posting just so I can show everyone what those entries will look like. So just remember, we're posting our normal journal entries, but we're also posting those automatic reversals. So that's why you see there's 4 entries that are being posted. And so if we drill into that, you can see our initial entry on the 20th. So today, you can see that debit of 1,500 going to my rent account and that balancing credit going to my accrued rental account. But then you can see on the very next day, on the 21st, those reversal entries are going to auto post for us. So then you can see that credit of 1,500 being reversed back out of our rent account, and then that debit of 1,500 being reversed back out of our accrued rental income account. And so that's really the key benefit of your recurring general journal. You can set up those automatic reversal entries within your recurring method. And so we'll go ahead and post this. So just keep in mind the formula we have set. So this is going to automatically have this line automatically recur, and it should recur on the last day of the next month. So if I go ahead and post this, you'll see the line here will automatically recur for the next month. And you can see it didn't quite recur on the date that we were expecting, but that's where we can kind of experiment with the different formulas to get it to recur on the specific days that we want. But you'll see here, the line will recur and sit here within your recurring general journal for you to come back the next month and simply post. So that was pretty much everything for today's webinar. We walked through your general journal. We walked through how to set up standard journals within that general journal, and then also went through your recurring general journal and how that might be useful for us in our day-to-day activities. So we are reaching the end of our time. I'll go ahead and open up the floor just for anyone that might have any questions. And if there aren't any questions, we can go ahead and tie things off. Thanks, everyone.